This is called My Mother's Ghost Story. My mother has a ghost story that she only tells at parties to the rolling eyes of my father and to the enthused engagement of her fellow dinner guests. She recalls when she was 8, still living in her first childhood home, half asleep on her tiny bed in her tiny bedroom, when a tall man wearing overalls and a straw hat emerged and stood in her open doorway. "Daddy," she asked, and the man nodded to her before continuing down the hallway. The next morning, at breakfast, my mother asked my grandfather, "What were you doing in my room last night, and why were you wearing overalls?" But my grandfather said, "I don't know what the hell you're talking about, Joanne." When my mother tells that story, she always concludes it with the stinger that the previous owner of the place was a very tall man who worked often as a gardener and who hung himself tragically in the upstairs bathroom. The slight implication being that the tall man in overalls with the straw hat and who looked in on my mother that night was in fact the spectral manifestation of the haunted spirit of the home's previous owner. There was always a lot of oohing and ahhing at this, and the other dinner guests take my mother's story as an invitation to reveal a bit of themselves, saying in bold-faced quotation marks, "I don't believe in God. I had an experience once when I was a child. I don't think anything happens when we die. I think our souls just evaporate. I think we're dust." That last estimation falls in line perhaps most closely to my own personal belief system, a fact that would have surprised the younger incarnation of myself, who began praying for 2 hours a day to an Old Testament God when his ailing grandfather was diagnosed with lung cancer, and who developed an intense fascination with the paranormal after burning through the entirety of the X-Files in a single month. I still have my bookshelf full of quasi-academic cryptozoological textbooks written by well-meaning but naive journalists from back when I was a child, and my biggest goal in life was to find and document the existence of Bigfoot. My aspirations are considerably smaller now, but still I think there is something romantic in the notion that we have not yet discovered and identified every aspect of this earth, and that there is a lovely simplicity to the days when we, collectively as a society, believed that there was more that we weren't seeing. In 1909, numerous reports of a kangaroo-like creature with bat-like rings and the head of a goat, known only as the Jersey Devil, prompted widespread panic in the Delaware Valley, schools being shut down for a week, shops closing, and the Philadelphia Zoo offering a $10,000 reward for a sample of the creature's fecal matter. In 1966, numerous sightings of a large man-sized bird with red eyes, referred to by an enthusiastic media outlet as the Mothman, gave rise to mass hysteria in the town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, that was so wide and so thorough in its convictions that the government agents were said to have been sent to the town to investigate. And in 1968, Orson Welles staged a radio play dramatization of H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds that was so convincing that many listeners across the East Coast and Canada mistook science fiction for science fact and fled their homes in panic and confusion. In the age of the internet and 24/7 news networks, I do not foresee something like the aforementioned examples of paranormal hysteria breaking out again in our small or large towns in this or any other nation. How could that possibly happen when we don't believe in the effectiveness of our own elected government officials, when certain social circles shame quote-unquote outsiders for believing in a Christian God, when we don't even believe casting rumors without proper citation? This is not to say, of course, that I myself am a believer in much of anything. The whole obsessive praying thing stopped when I became cognizant of my own budding atheism and started to redirect my more compulsive tendencies towards more secular habitual inclinations. I stepped into a Catholic church for the first time in years last semester as a part of our writing exercise, and the friend whose church I was attending got mad at me for wearing my Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien shirt, which struck me as odd, not only because I wore a nice-looking unbuttoned button-up over it, but also because I've always looked at Conan O'Brien as a sort of alternative comedy Christ figure, struck down for the sins of a failing broadcast network, chasing the broad appeal of unrivaled mediocrity, and then reborn, hallelujah, reborn from the soft-skinned belly of a cable television network run by Mr. Ted Turner. Good God, holy shit, the closest thing I have to mythic heroes or comedians, largely ephemeral storytellers who have already reached the apex of their pop relevancy. I don't know what beliefs I will pass on to my children. I don't believe my mother's ghost story. I don't believe in Mothman. I don't believe in God. Some nights I don't even believe in myself. I don't think anything happens when we die. I think our souls just evaporate. I think we're dust. Thank you so much.